You know, the Wii has such a fun catalog of first-party games: Smash Bros, Mario, Zelda, Donkey Kong, Metroid, Kirby, Fire Emblem. Definitely not Star Fox, and sure as hell not Pokemon. But there's another category of games that the Wii is known for, and we're coming back to familiar territory because Skyward Sword and Mario Party 9 should be official third-party games through WiiWare. And this is relatively ironic from the last time you saw me. The Wii had a bunch of interesting third-party games, from Wii Sports clones, The World of Goo, which is a beautiful piece of art. Someone tell me if you've played Ben 10 Alien Force The Rise of Hex and had a fun time with a straight face. WiiWare definitely has some gems: the aforementioned World of Goo, Not Sonic 4, Sexy Poker for my fellow Dead or Alive fans, Tetris Party, Mega Man 9 and 10, as well as Dr. Mario Online RX, which are the best of this big bunch. The last time we were here, we talked about my personal Diamond in the Rough trilogy that I love, but this time around I found a duology that's more like extremely rusted bronze, that most people just see it as trash without digging deeper. I like to believe that there's something here, but it doesn't succeed in what it wants to be. Let's talk about a small series of family party games that's literally called Family Party. Creativity was most likely the lowest stat when it comes to title choices. So there are 3 games in this series on the Wii. I have 2 that I'm going to talk about, but let's quickly go over the first. Family Party 30 Great Games. This is the only game I don't have, so I can't get as detailed as I want because I have zero experience playing this game, but it sets the base for the other 2 games afterwards that I will talk about soon. These games are compilations of short activities set around the game's theme. The original seems more complex because there isn't a specific theme, so think about Mario Party without the main mode, medieval games type of minigames, and they had a baby. Congratulations, it's a beautiful disappointment. Now let's go over the first sibling since the oldest decided to drop out of elementary school. I couldn't find a single thing about this game's development or any trailers because just look at this. Do you really think they'll document this game's creation? Family Party 30 Great Games Outdoor Fun was released on the Nintendo Wii first in North America on September 22nd, 2009, October 9th, 2009 in Europe, and sometime in either late October, November, or December 2009 in Australia. Japan was smart to avoid this game, even though it was developed by Japanese gaming company Tamsoft, who also worked on classics like Tokyo Beatdown, 3 Senran Kagura games on the 3DS, alongside Neptunia X Senran Kagura Ninja Wars on the Nintendo Switch. So if you were expecting hot girls with big boobs, I'm sorry for your loss because this is 2009, that's not profitable in America yet. The only proof I have of this is the Sekirei OVA aired in 2009, so do what you will with that information. I'm very interested as to what developing this game was like, seeing the perspective of trying to create something similar but more complex to Wii Sports, unless it has nothing to do with these games existing in the first place, but I do believe there's some inspiration because of how big Wii Sports turned out to be. I don't have any sales numbers or general reception and critiques, but I think it's safe to assume that this game was probably in the top 2,559. This is Family Party 30 Great Games Outdoor Fun. Yes, that is a mouthful. I could finish the whole Sekirei manga and anime before I finish saying it. You want to know why this game is rated E10+? Because mild cartoon violence. The fact that this game is on the same edge level as Shadow the Hedgehog might put me in a coma. Alright, so because this is a sports game, we gotta find some sports to play. This game's main theme being outdoor sports leaves a lot of possibilities for a large variety of activities to participate in, and luckily we have ourselves a good number of different sports that are split up into different categories that fit a specific theme that follows the idea of outdoor sports. There are 6 different areas with certain games that represent that area. You would think it would be 5 games per area coming to a total of 30 sports, but this game clickbaited me for the last 16 years because there are actually 33 sports to partake in. Also, the title of every single event starts with "the," which is something I hope to never see again after this. Starting off with the muscle area. The floating island is a 3-round race where you have to jump across a multitude of platforms and get from point A to point B in the fastest amount of time. Every round gets more and more chaotic, and you can tackle your competition off the platforms to give yourself an advantage. Platforms will either stay floating or sink at random for however long you stand on them, so you gotta get your ass moving cause drowning is not a fun activity, especially when you're in front of a crowd. That's fucking terrifying. There are also ball launchers that will try to keep you off the platforms, so be aware of those. This is a very intense sport, but if you find yourself all alone away from the competition, you can afford to take your time, but you have 90 seconds to get to the goal, so plan your moves accordingly before becoming a meme. Next up is the boxercise. I have no words. This was a childhood favorite because the vibes hit hard when you don't have critical thinking skills at 11. You have to use the nunchuck alongside the Wii remote and imitate the moves from the boxer in front of us. On both right and left sides you got hooks and uppercuts, while they both have one unique attack. The right side has a straight punch and the left side has a jab. Is this accurate to real life where you primarily jab with your left? I have no idea, but I do like this sport. The pro boxer makes the whole thing for me because he's a living gamer legend in my eyes. I really just said that, didn't I? Next up is the Inner Clock 2. Now, if you look at this at face value, you would question how the fuck this goes in the muscle area. Well, my best guess is that you need good muscle memory because in this sport, you are assigned a time to keep track of and press your button closest to that time. There are 4 rounds of this and whoever has the most points wins. Your competition and even the game itself tries to distract you in a few different ways. Unique camera angles, characters moving around to make you lose track of time, and even crabs. But you can cheese this sport so damn hard. If you have a computer, phone, or any device on you, just pull up the stopwatch and claim your W as if you won with skill. Next on the list is an actual muscle themed event, the Hammer Strike. This is an Olympic hammer throw event, but instead of throwing the furthest distance, you have to aim for a target and gain as many points as possible within 60 seconds. You also want to take into consideration your spin speed, because if you spin too much, you'll get dizzy. Insanely hectic, and somehow the competitors aren't leaving with concussions or arms pulled out of their socket. The final sport in the muscle area is the marathon. The title says it all. In this game, you can finish a marathon in less than 3 minutes. That's a casual marathoner's dream. The control is very simple, but you'll be shaking the Wii remote so much it'll feel like your arm ran a marathon on its own. You have to manage your stamina by collecting items at recovery tables. Water gives you extra speed but no extra stamina. Bananas give you a small stamina boost but no extra speed, while energy drinks should be your main priority because they're both water and bananas combined. Fictional energy drinks are either the greatest beverage of all time or Stewie Griffin. I also like how we race amongst a bunch of NPCs. Ironically, it brings more life to this sport. Imagine this wide ass straight line and only having 4 contestants. That sounds depressing. The next area is the athletics area, starting with the pole climb 2. Get to the top the fastest to win and avoid the obstacles in front of you, or should I say on top of you. I'm not good with words. The control is super simple on paper, but in practice, relatively finicky. Getting a good start is very important because those annoying ass rainbow bugs are everywhere. Sometimes you'll have to switch poles and keep climbing. Also be aware of birds and bombs. Luckily for our characters, death does not exist in this universe, so they won't have to worry about an embarrassing tombstone. Next up is without a doubt my most played sport in this game, the Obstacle Race 2. I think it's my most played because it's the easiest sport to win. All you have to do is shake your Wii remote and use the A and B buttons when needed. It's really not all that hard, and there are a lot of different courses with their own difficulties, which brings some nice variety. I don't know what about this sport kept me coming back, but I never got sick of it. Although a fun way to make things more interesting and challenging for me is to give the CPUs a head start and try to make a comeback from last place. It's actually pretty thrilling and it's made this event a lot more fun for me. The reflexes is very boring on paper, but in execution it's actually even more boring. You have to wait around for 2 poles to slide down, although the catch is that your competition can mess with your head and drop fake poles, and if you try to grab them then they get points while you lose points. Once you see the actual poles fall, depending on where you catch them depends on your overall score. This is one of the more bland activities in the game despite an interesting idea, but generally having to wait around every single time for each player, it gets very dull very quick. Especially if you're playing by yourself to where you can't skip the CPUs in their turn, which makes sense because you do play a role for your opponent's turn, but still you can only drop 1 fake pole every turn. So this board has a lot of empty space to it, hence why it's not all that fun because there's nothing going on. The unicycle gave me trauma when I was younger because this control is absolutely fucking terrible. I'd rather play Sonic R for 3 months straight. This is a race to the finish with obstacles that you have to race through. At some point you'll have to start riding backwards, doing 360s, and this gives me an amazing reason to never consider riding a unicycle in my second lifetime. The balance board makes me wish we could use the Wii balance board, but it wouldn't translate well to what we have here. It's basically last man standing on a variety of platforms with a bunch of holes. Although you can push your opponents off into the center of the earth. That's pretty fun. This is a very discounted version of the final countdown from Mario Party. Now let's make our way to the sports area. You wouldn't believe it, but there are actual sports over here. This is without a doubt the most straightforward area in the game, so let's make our way to the beach and start off with the beach flag. This is one of the quickest and easiest activities in the game. Shake your Wii remote like hell and collect the beach flags. There is no depth here, just run and grab. It's just that easy. Next up is the boat race. This is similar to rowing in Mario Sonic 2008, but with zero character, and it feels like a carbon copy of sorts. Although here, there's an invisible stamina meter which sucks because you could be off to the best start, get tired, and the next thing you know, you have a hole in your TV. The home run match is a very interesting game on paper, but super vanilla in practice. 2 rounds of one-on-one baseball. Each character gets 6 chances at the plate, and whoever has the highest score wins. The main goal is to hit as many home runs as possible because that'll get you the highest score. Although if you obtain a normal base hit, you'll still get points, but not that many compared to a home run. And if you strike out, you'll just die from embarrassment. Pitching is very fast, but also super fucking boring. Throw your pitch and hope you don't see that ball break a window. The quarterback is next up, and this one takes a while. I have conflicting feelings about this event. On one hand, it's a very interesting idea, but on the other hand, there's mold everywhere. In this activity, each character gets to be the quarterback for 45 seconds and rack up as many points as possible. With every play, you must make your way downfield, whether it's passing to your teammates or taking matters into your own hands, going for the rush. The further you make it down the field, the more points you get. You see, I don't mind the offense here, although the other side gets to be more stinky. Playing defense in this sport is such a drag. You get a 45-second time limit for offense, but once you start playing defense, it's the exact same thing for minimum 2 minutes and 15 seconds. That may not seem that long on paper, but we have to remember a major factor of this sport. Every single play is going to stop, and you have to wait every single time for the next snap. It just drags on and on for minutes on end. Although on defense, you can still rack up points by getting tackles, but most of the time, this event feels like it takes forever to finish. This is only the start of activities that go on for way longer than they should, but we'll get there soon. Let's move on to our final sports area event, the free kick. Very straightforward. Put the ball in the goal and avoid the wall of people blocking your way, including the goalie himself. Each character gets 5 kicks, and whoever gets the most points wins. Are you starting to notice a theme here? There are these emblems that are floating in the air. These can get you extra points and a better chance at scoring a goal. On defense, you have to follow your instincts and hope your opponents kick the ball in your face, although you'll get points for this. Also, if you hit the crossbar, you'll get a decent amount of points. So that's a nice incentive to go for stupid trick shots instead of winning. Now that's it for the first 3 areas in the game. The back half you have to unlock, although there's a catch. The rest of these activities are very new to me because I just unlocked them while playing. I have owned this game for over 13 years, and I'm just now playing the unlockable content for the first time. It's safe to say that I was the definition of the ultimate casual gamer when I was younger. Hopefully there's a positive ratio with these events by the time we start wrapping things up. Let's take a look for ourselves. First up is the castle area, getting us going with the first new event, the Get Rich Quick. Jesus. A treasure hunting game with very annoying music. We're placed on an 8x8 grid. We gotta dig through as many blocks within 90 seconds and collect as much treasure as possible. We use shovels, drills, and dynamite. You can only use the drill for so long at a time, as well as a limited amount of dynamite we can blow up. There's some interesting strategy with this activity. Basically, when you use certain tools at what time. It's definitely the most interesting activity in the castle. While on the other hand, the hanging bridge fucking sucks. You have to make your way from one side of the bridge to the other within 90 seconds and survive. Imagine walking across a tightrope and having to avoid sniper shots. That's basically what this is, but rated E10+. When it's your turn, it's just fine. Sometimes you'll make it to the other side untouched. Other times you'll get barely halfway through. You can protect yourself with a riot shield if you need to. But where I really come to hate this activity is when it's your turn to shoot. Now, shooting itself on the gameplay side is actually very fun. I like getting headshots on the CPUs, but it's the fact that you have to wait a minute and 30 seconds per character. This goes back to the reflexes and having to deal with empty space, but it's better here because you're constantly in action and you're not waiting for nothing. Although you do have to deal with 4 minutes and 30 seconds of the exact same gameplay. The cannonball gameplay is fine in theory, but it's the exact same thing over and over again. It can get boring, but not as fast as it does in the reflexes. Is that saying something? Honestly, I don't fucking know. It can run itself dry very quickly, and it makes me want to just get it over with instead of me enjoying the general experience. This is the start of the not so fun part of this game for me. Activities start to drag and take forever to finish. It even comes to a point where they can go for many minutes. There are no timers in some of these events coming up. But before I go on a rant, let's keep moving forward. Do y'all remember the show Hole in the Wall? There was a terrible 360 Connect game on it, and I played it every day for 3 months back in 2013. I was 11. Well, Family Party is bringing it back in the form of the ninja. I can't really say this is a good adaptation, but it's very straightforward. Make sure you're in the right pose at the right angle before the wall gets to you. That is all. I can't really say much here because there's really not much else to say. What you see is what you get. Rest in peace, Hole in the Wall. A lot of people forgot about you until I just mentioned it. The samurai is the worst Fruit Ninja knockoff. Slice whatever is in front of you, time your swing for the cleanest slice possible. The control is pretty inconsistent. At times I believe I got the timing just right, and then the game gives me a middle finger from the 64-bit era. Although if you see animals, don't swing or else PETA will be on your ass as soon as you turn your head away from your screen. The final activity in the castle area is the karate. Break as many tiles as you can within 60 seconds. Concentrate and break your hand trying to karate chop a piece of paper. This is a pretty quick event, not all that interesting, so let's just move on. The shooting area. This has the potential to be a favorite, but then when I finished playing, I was so sad. The Subliminal, a guessing game where you have to memorize the items shown on screen. Every character gets a turn to try and select the correct items. 4 rounds and take a guess at how you win. It's fine, not the best in the world, but not the worst of the worst. Although there's an event called the Sniper. What you're seeing now is what it's supposed to look like for a normal player. The average experience for a sniper simulator. Yeah, I totally never wanted to be a sniper TF2 player anyway. Thank God we got that done and over with. My deepest apologies, but it was a necessary evil. Just like Overwatch 2. The William Tell is a fine event, but for me it goes on a lot longer than it should. This reminds me of those carnival shooting games, and that's a nice feeling. Shoot the apples and avoid the bears at all costs. You will feel guilty. I know full well what I did, and I have confessed my sins. The last 2 events of this area are set in space, and they both kinda suck, but one is better than the other as you'd expect. The Planet X and the Asteroid Belt. At the very least, Planet X has a cool idea and it's executed better for me. For some dumbass reason, it reminds me of certain areas from Subspace Emissary. Now, is that a good thing? You would think so, but I wouldn't be surprised if I get incarcerated in the next few minutes. But basically survive, destroy the enemies in front of you, and rack up the points to win. The same thing goes for the Asteroid Belt, but instead of the worst Galaga remake, this is so much more bland than it should have been, and the setting never changes. I really don't like this event. Now it's time for our final 8 activities in the variety area. Although we're not off to the best start with the territory. This is a turf war on an 8x8 grid. Each character takes turns placing their colors on the board at one time. Lots of strategy, but for the life of me, I don't understand a damn thing here. This could be one of those shitty gambling games, except instead of a chance at winning, you have a 100% chance of losing all your money no matter how good you do. So basically, just normal gambling. Let's stay on the negative and work our way up to the positive. Next up is the dungeon. So this is what it was like playing Revelations Persona. More specifically, the PS1 version. This is your average maze. Find your way to the center, look for secret pathways, and realize that Pac-Man's origin was the complete and utter definition of hell. Do you enjoy memory match games? If you said no, you did not have a childhood. The Remembering is your classic memorization game where you have to flip panels and look for the exact same item at the same time. Obviously, this is very vanilla yet super consistent. Although there is a shuffle panel you can find. It's not necessarily the shuffle I don't like, it's the fact that you could be knee deep into your board and then someone activates a shuffle that completely resets the entire board, and now you have to start right back from the beginning, making this run way longer than it should. But other than that, this is in the middle of the pack, and I don't mind coming back. Okay, I tried to rhyme, it didn't work. Other than that, this is in the middle of the pack, and I don't... Okay, I need to stop trying to make it rhyme. But other than that, for me, this is in the middle of the pack, and I don't mind coming back to it despite the possibility of a hard reset that shouldn't be a thing in the first place. The Sparkball 2 is where we have to traverse through 4 different mazes and collect treasure. Control your selector with the cursor, and try to stay alive while gathering treasure throughout the maze. If your health gauge runs out, then you're disqualified. The first player to collect 3 pieces of treasure wins, but if everyone runs out of health, then the last person standing wins regardless of how much treasure they have. A very interesting concept, and it's on the damn box art, so it has to be a positive standout, right? Yeah. No, I have two words for you. Auto-scroller. Instead of letting the players travel amongst themselves to look for treasure, we're all forced to take the same path every single time until someone completes the objective or everyone else dies. There are items that pop up every now and again, but they don't matter in the slightest, except for the one that grants you invincibility. This could have been done right if this was the dungeon instead of the dungeon itself. I really hope that makes sense. But we're 14 years away from that. Everything I say will change nothing. Next up, let's head south to the ranch for the cowboy. In this event, you have to use your lasso to rally up literally whatever is in front of us. Logs of wood, wandering cows, and even raging bulls with the momentum of Luigi looking at you like this. Take a guess at how you win this event. Exactly, playing Deca Sports 3 instead. The fact that a child can rally up a goddamn bull, Asterius is horrified of Emily. I honestly don't mind this activity, although it did take me some time to figure out the control, but eventually I figured it out, and it's not that bad. This next activity is insanely quick and easy, but the name is a bit misleading. The jump dive is an event I thought we would become Olympic divers, but instead we have to jump off a platform as high as we can and hold on to the rope for dear life, or else you'll give us the biggest face plan of all time. One of the easiest events in the whole game without a doubt. 2 more to go, and my god, I've said a lot more than I thought I would about these sports. The Wanted is a very fun idea. You're given a profile of a specific character and you have to find them within a very large group. Whoever finds that character gains control of the camera, and they're allowed to either look for the wanted person at risk of the others taking them, or just screw around and not get anything done. There's actual strategy here. My only gripe is that it definitely overstays its welcome, but I generally don't mind it here because I'm too busy dominating the competition. No one can fuck with me on this event. And finally, to end off this mediocre run of new content, we finish up with The Hole 2. That sounds like a really bad chick flick, but this is probably my favorite out of these new activities. It's one of those maze puzzles where you have to physically tilt it to get the marble to the goal. Except here we get cute little animals, but they can also be eaten by horrifying plants. That really took a turn. There are also items that can be used to slow down everyone else, but holy shit, I hate dealing with them. It gives me the same vibe as getting hit with the blue shell, but second place passes you just in time for them not to get targeted. Yeah, that's not fun. Whoever gets all 3 of their animals to the bottom of the puzzle wins. At least we're ending this segment on a good note, but my god, a lot of these events are hell to get through. Either they go on for too long, or they're just straight up annoying to play, but at least there's a little bit of good here for me. A part of me really does want to learn the development process here. I'm very curious how we got here when it came time to release, but I guess that information will be a mystery for the time being. 33 activities in total. Surprisingly, there's 13 I actively replay and enjoy playing, 12 that are in the gray area of mediocrity. I'll play these if I'm in a certain mood, and the other 8 I would rather not play ever again after this. Although I'll give a very small exception to the Interclock 2 because of cheese. But let's finally move on to something else. I actually feel my voice going. Now that we're done with the main event, I want to talk about the 16 characters we have access to. What a very interesting cast of people we get to play as. On one side, you have a legit family dynamic. This is a family TV show cast if I've ever seen one. The second half is where things kinda go off the rails, but at least there's some variety here. A cheerleader, model, Japanese students who can never tell one another that they like each other due to major misunderstandings, a discount Kiss member, and even Black Adam. Hey, look at that, it's the best character in the game. This is a very funny roster, but generally there isn't as much substance with these characters other than the fact that you have to play as someone. It's similar to Deca Sports in a sense. You have playable characters, but they're only here to give you an option for who you want to play. There's no unique stats to separate them from others, no unique lore. At least Deca Sports had size archetypes that changed the way you strategize in the first 2 games, but here, play whoever you want and be proud of your choice. But before you choose your soulmate, it's time to choose what you're going to play. This game gets straight to the point with 4 game modes, but only 2 of them bring any type of value, so real quick. Records and options are the definition of self-explanatory, so I'm not going to waste any more time on them for the rest of this review. Up first is the battle mode. In this mode, you get to build your own gauntlet of events to play back to back. You can choose up to 10 events max, and you can even choose to play one event 10 times in a row, something I am very very guilty of. But this mode is very straightforward and to the point. You can boot up the game for the first time and start playing with nothing standing in your way, which is very nice. To wrap up this very short list of game modes is the challenge mode. This is where you can take on sports of different areas. Well, that mainly comes into play in this game mode. You pick one of 6 areas and you take on the challenge of coming out on top. There really isn't anything all that interesting. All you have to do in order to win the whole thing is to have the most points by the end of the final event. You start off with 3 areas, and once you complete those 3, you'll unlock the last 3 areas. So it's basically a fixed battle mode, which is interesting because you can play challenge mode in battle mode, but you get to choose the order. So whatever you want to do, go for it and do it quietly so no one finds out. Now, usually I go over a bunch of miscellaneous topics, but with a game as one note as this, how can I manage to talk more about a game that doesn't even have its own Wikipedia page? The only thing I can think of is that as you continue to play, you'll unlock color schemes for your characters, and you can change the background of the menus if you so choose. That's all I came up with. Deca Sports has more depth than this. If you've been with me for a while, then you know I'm a gamer that likes to talk about potential when it comes to games, the what ifs. Mainly if there's a concept that wasn't taken all the way, I like to come up with ideas for ways to take said concept to the next level. But with this game specifically, there's no potential other than a hard reset and actually making a good sports game. I unironically replayed this game to hell when I had games like Mario Galaxy, Smash Bros. Brawl, the Wii Sports Duology, but I put hours upon hours into this of all games. That is beyond embarrassing. Now obviously I don't know the total playtime from way back when to present day, but I wouldn't be surprised if this cracks the top 10 of my most played Wii games. And that should get me incarcerated at minimum. So to wrap up the middle child of this trilogy, it's a game that definitely exists. It's playable as you can tell. I could only find 5 songs from the soundtrack on YouTube, and 3 of them are different variations from one event. If that doesn't keep you up at night, I don't know what will. So, after that dumpster fire, let's see if little brother can put us on the path of redemption. Yeah, no, I have a better chance at finding a true loving partner. The year is 2010, the beginning of a new decade and an absolute insane year for gaming. The 360 Kinect makes its grand debut, Nintendo released the Wii Motion Plus for more accurate motion control, but when it comes to the video games themselves, holy shit. Mario Galaxy 2, Mass Effect 2, Red Dead Redemption, God of War 3, Xenoblade Chronicles, and World of Warcraft Cataclysm. A very powerful year. But when we shift our attention to the next Family Party installment, we're not off to the best start. Very similar to its predecessor, there is zero information or behind the scenes documentation on this game. Once again, all I have are release dates and 2 different variations of the box art. Family Party 30 Great Games Winter Fun was released first in North America on February 9th, 2010, and 10 days later in Europe. Yeah, Australia said no thank you, and they benefited in some way, shape, and form as a country due to this. So let's take a look to see if the winter setting is what was missing. The bar is 6 feet under, so hopefully we see some improvement. This is Family Party 30 Great Games Winter Fun. Surprisingly, with this game compared to its summer outdoor counterpart, some of the sports you can play here are based on the Olympic variations in real life. There are a good number of Winter Olympic sports that make a playable appearance here, but there are some that are based on winter activities or straight up fantasy. Similar to said predecessor, the sports belong in their own area or whatever that sports theme is centered around. Although we do take a dip in quantity, this time around we have 5 areas and 5 sports per area, coming to a total of 25 activities to participate in. Hopefully these activities are entertaining enough to warrant the lower number of things to do. So let's take a look. Starting off with the slope area. First up is the giant slalom. Fun fact, I've talked about this sport twice, and the only difference is that this is without a doubt the worst iteration of the sport that I've talked about. I don't know if this is because I'm playing with Wii Motion Plus, but the controls feel a bit too sensitive. It's mainly when turning, because as soon as you turn in one direction, you make the sharpest turn when you're not even trying. Granted, you can slow yourself down if you need to, and it can be very useful, as well as saving you from the terribly long recovery time if you crash into a flag. Holy shit, the recovery times in this game when you make a mistake, it takes so damn long for your character to get their ass back up and into the action. It is infuriating. This can be game changing in the worst ways for the player, and we will find it in more and more events as we move forward, but the general gist gist that I get with this event is that the control is very sensitive, super vanilla, and not all that exciting. Next up is the jump. I don't know why it wasn't called the ski jump, but that's exactly what it is. After you jump and when you're flying through the air, you have to navigate your flight path based on the wind. Stay as balanced as you possibly can. You don't want to be tilted too far in any direction. This allows for a much easier landing, and obviously the distance plays a big factor, but you don't want to roll yourself into a snowball because you were 1 degree too far to the right and the next thing you know, your right arm is gone. At least you wore a helmet if you're certain characters. I mean, Simon does have a built-in helmet and he looks cool all the time, so he's one of the very few exceptions. Now we move on to the luge. Thank God we're getting these familiar sports over with first. The luge is different from the skeleton in one major way. You lay on your back instead of your front. I swear, it's very different. Similar to Mario and Sonic, there are pathways on the course that will give you an immense speed boost. As long as you don't bump into the walls and lose your speed, you'll be just fine. The cross-country skiing. What else do I say about this? You're skiing from point A to point B. Whoever crosses the finish line first wins. Manage your stamina and go for the win. There's nothing else to expand upon, so let's finish up this area with the snow tube. Finally, a unique sporting event for a winter setting. This is a very quick and simple snow tube race down a massive hill. Look out for snow bumps and pursue dash panels. This is gonna sound a little bit weird, but you can switch up your riding style. Sitting normally is very balanced and stable. You're less prone to lose control, while the belly style allows you to accelerate faster, but it's harder to control, and if you run into a snow bump, you take about 5 business days to recover. Honestly, I really like this sport because the race itself is pretty satisfying to play, even with the sensitive control. I really enjoyed this one, getting the control down, consistent speed boost. It has a certain thrill to it that I really liked. Our next area is the stadium area. There's only one sport that does not take place in a stadium, but you gotta work with what you're given. That sport is the snowboard cross. We've talked about this 3 separate times, and to no one's surprise, it's as advertised. Race down a snowboard course, fastest time wins. The only difference between this iteration compared to the other 3 is whenever you run into another competitor, you have to fight for your life to keep your balance and not fall over. In Deca Sports, you just take the fall like a champ, and in the Mario and Sonic games, you just lose a bit of speed. This sport really does feel like an arcade game, mainly due to the constant camera angle changes if you run into anything. Like Mario Kart Arcade if it dropped out of middle school. Now we actually move into a stadium for the next 4 sports. Starting with the speed skating. Are you starting to notice a trend here? Don't worry, there are only 4 more familiar events. Everything else is untapped territory. Speed skating is really the only sport that I played religiously in my youth. I rarely played anything else, but beware of arm pumping. It's exactly what it sounds like, just stay with me for a second. This is one of the easiest sports to get into, hence why I played this like my 14-year-old life depended on it. The definition of an easy win. It's a very quick event, but we'll make a return to a much better variation of this later on, and I'm glad I still like it to this day despite the short duration. And then we get to the short track speed skating. Now if you're familiar with me, the previous 2 times I've talked about this general sport and how it plays in Mario and Sonic 2010 and 2014, I was not a fan of either variation. Although, to my surprise, Family Party gives me an iteration of this sport that I really enjoyed. This is easily my second most played sport, and it plays the exact same from the previous, just in a short track setting. This time you have to watch out for snow piles that will 100% ruin your day. Manage your stamina with recovery items, and aim for the invincibility star for an extra speed boost and go for the win. I never thought I'd see the day that I would enjoy a video game adaptation of one of my favorite Olympic events, but it's been with me for 13 years and I had no idea. Now we move on to the figure skating. I'm starting to get sick of these events starting with the every single fucking time. The way the sport plays is not even ambitious, it's just wrong. In terms of gameplay design, it's very similar to Deca Sports figure skating where you follow a path for your performance, but instead of each character performing one after the other, everyone is performing at the same time and you can run into each other. If this were to happen in real life, I do not believe the Winter Olympics would be a thing anymore. So there are different bubbles that have their own properties. That is, if you're able to figure out how to play this godforsaken sport. The game calls this a puzzle action game. In no world should figure skating and puzzles be put together, but here the hell we are. Highest score wins. Now because I'm older and have a better understanding of how to read and follow tutorials, I did quickly get a hang of this sport, but I'm still not a fan. It feels barren and empty. Your bubble trail can just straight up disappear, leaving you lost and trying to find where you need to go next. It feels intentional in a sense that there should be a continuation of bubbles spawning after you pop one, but I'm not a fan of the execution of a puzzle action figure skating minigame. But maybe sometime in the future we'll get something better, although I have my doubts. The final sport in this area is the goalkeeper. Instead of playing normal ice hockey, let's make a football style shootout the entire concept. 30 seconds of not trying to let any pucks in the goal. Each player gets one turn as the goalie, highest score wins. When playing as the goalie, you get access to the 4 limbs, both arms and legs. As the shooter, you don't have guns, just hockey sticks. Aim and hope. It's very straightforward, although originally when I first played this, I thought it was the most complicated thing on earth, but in reality, it definitely does exist in this game. And now we make our way up to the mountain area, starting off with the cliff climbing. First to make it to the top wins. Be aware of the environmental hazards, move accordingly, and try not to fall as soon as you get to the top. The control takes a somewhat realistic approach here. You have to work your controllers like they're actual picks, as if you're climbing up a cliff. It's relatively similar to Outdoor Fun's Pole Climb 2, but in a winter setting and more flexible. It's interesting, but there is a sense of satisfaction I gain from playing this, especially if I make it to the top without any passive slowdown. Honestly, I don't mind this one. Now it's time to make our way down the cliff with the rappelling. I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced because it sounds right to me. Gives the same vibe as Pokemon pronunciation. A similar setting to the previous event, but this time we're working our way down. Nearly everything I stated in the cliff climbing applies here, so there's no need to repeat myself. Now we get to another favorite of mine, the slip drop. You slide your way down a very steep hill, and you cannot allow yourself to fall into the pit at the end. Time your pick stop at just the right time, slow yourself down, and whoever gets closest to the edge without going over will gain the most points, and whoever has the most upset points after 3 rounds is the winner. I love the fast pace and having to rely on your own instinct in order to get a win. I do like this one. Also, if you slide into your competition, you'll turn into human snowballs and have to weasel your way out of them in order to take back control before it's too late. How they get back up to the top after that fall is beyond me, but maybe these characters can secretly fly and we just don't know it. Now it's time to slow things down with the next 2 events. The ice mining is an interesting prospect because if you remember the get rich quick, this is that, but once again in a winter setting. But here we're not trying to get rich. Now we just have to destroy a bunch of ice blocks and hope a polar bear doesn't jump out and kill us. Similar to get rich quick, it's relatively slow and honestly a drag to play through because of said speed. Very whatever for me. The last mountain activity is the footprint, your basic counting game. You're given a prompt of what to count for and you have to count them up. Either specific animal footprints, the animals themselves, or both. It all depends on what the game tells you to look for. I do wish that we could switch up the settings after every round because seeing the same area multiple times at the exact same camera angles can get very dull very quick, but it's fine either way. The field area is where these activities get a bit more action oriented as we have 5 different races to participate in. The snowmobile is a pretty good start. This is a very fast race to the finish line on snowmobiles. Shall we move on to the next event? Be aware of landmines spread across the course. If you explode, clean yourself up afterwards, but the long as hell recovery time will hit you like a truck. Are we still talking about video games? You tell me. The landmines themselves are damn near impossible to see because they blend into the snow so well they might as well be invisible. If you drive over one, be prepared for a jump scare. This is as close to Mario Kart as we're gonna get in these games, and honestly, it's not that terrible for this game's standards. Next up is the ice race, a concept I'm very interested in. An on-foot race across a snowy obstacle course breaking down as we make progress. I actually really like this race. It's a more open-ended variation of the floating island from Outdoor Fun, and I definitely prefer this over that, no question about it. The snowball rolling presents a race of exactly what the title states, although the control had me very confused when I first played it. As you work your way to the finish line and roll your big ball of snow, you have to look out for these big ass boulders in your way. Swing both Wii Remote and Nunchuck at the same time to get things going, but whenever you need to turn, you have to turn right with the Nunchuck and left with the Wii Remote. Basically inverted turn controls because most of the time you'll be holding the Wii Remote in your right hand and the Nunchuck in your left, unless you're left-handed, then you are the exception. Now for the righties like myself, this can be balanced out by switching the controls in your hands, but that's not the best direction to take in terms of gameplay and control. Why this control scheme was greenlit is beyond me, but this event is quick and straight to the point. The ice canoeing is just snowball rolling in a different setting, but that doesn't make it bad. The control is more simple and not inverted, which is highly preferable for me. Avoid the icebergs and cross the finish line first. This one is fine with me. I don't mind playing it, although the start of your turn takes forever and you can go off the rails pretty quick. Then we get to one of my least favorite sports in this game, and that is saying a lot. We conclude the field area with the biathlon. This is easily the worst iteration of one of my favorite Winter Olympic events. It's just cross-country skiing with guns, and that's how this event is executed. That's supposed to be how you explain the concept of this event on paper, not proceed to give us the most bare-bones version of this sport you can give us. The worst part is easily the shooting, especially the second area with that damn reticle seizing out like hell. Not to mention, whenever you miss a target, depending on how many you miss, you have to sidebar and take part in punishment laps for being up by shitty mechanics. That was not fun in the slightest, and a very bad way to end off a pretty decent area. And now we move on to the fifth and final area where all ambition lies. The variety area is back and might be my favorite? We'll find out after we're done here. Starting with the snowball fight, exactly what it turns out to be, a free-for-all snowball fight. Get behind barriers for protection, reload whenever you run out of snowballs. No one deserves your mercy, so don't be afraid to get personal if you want to. But the event itself is very slow and the arena is super condensed, so basically there's nowhere to go, and even that doesn't make things more intense by forcing close proximity, but it does get the job done at a relatively mediocre level. Now we move on to the Wish Upon a Star, one of the more complex activities in terms of gameplay. The idea is that you have to connect stars together and complete constellations. Each player gets a turn to attempt completion within a fixed time limit, but as soon as you select a star that is not a part of the constellation that you're not working on, then it's on to the next player for their turn. I really hope that makes sense. This event is very interesting as I never truly got the hang of it, but I don't completely hate it. It's alright and very unique for what it has to offer in terms of an overall concept. Next up is the snow plow. I once knew a guy who did snow and got plowed. After the plowing, he fucking died. But I've never used a snow plow in my life, and this is the closest I'm gonna get to that. This is similar to the ice mine from earlier, but this time we must clear out the area of snow and whoever gains the most points wins. Controlling these damn things is slower than Smash Bros. Ganondorf, especially turning. It's such a slog and not all that interesting, just very monochrome in terms of action, more so the lack thereof. The Santa Claus is a very decent Christmas movie, far from my first choice, but if I had to watch it, I wouldn't be mad. But the Santa Claus and Family Party does not come with the letter E, and it's one hell of an acid trip. The goal is to deliver the right gifts to the right house, and this can get insanely chaotic because there is so much going on. This is a super insane game of memory as everyone has a line of gifts, and they have to deliver specific gifts to whichever house made the request. I have respect for this one as you don't have to play it super fast, but as long as you're paying attention and working at a solid pace, you'll be just fine. The final sport is the penguin drift. This reminds me of one of the party games from Mario Sports Mix and both dream fencing and rafting from Mario and Sonic 2012, but 10 times worse. A disappointment of a child. Easily the most forgettable event in this game, and if I had to give this an interesting concept to make it marketable, Happy Feet 3 War Against Polar Bears. And that's every sport slash event slash activity, but not really. There are 5 other sports to participate in, but we'll get to those sports in due time. So are there any major differences to the roster this time around? Character-wise, no. But the customization is something that I find very charming. Because we are in a winter setting, our characters are bundled up and wearing corresponding gear for whatever sport they're participating in. It's a nice detail. You'll unlock different designs and color schemes that your characters can rock. I really love this aspect of the game, and it's most likely my absolute favorite because character customization is king even with the limitations, but you'll be seeing these all the time. Not to mention, you can play as a panda. This might be the greatest game of all time, but everyone that we're familiar with is back from summer camp and ready with their ice-type Pokemon. Now in terms of game modes, everything we've already seen works the exact same from the previous entry, but we now have one new game mode that poses a very unique challenge, the co-op mode. Thankfully this game isn't strictly multiplayer only, but obviously the option is there. In this mode, you take on a 4-on-4 gauntlet where you compete in 5 different sports and try to win a best of 3. This is where we get some very questionable decisions in terms of the sports you get to play. Not only do you play these sports every single time with no variety, but there are variations of these sports that you can only find in this mode. 4-man bobsleigh, a speed skating relay, curling, and snowball melee. Now I stated that there were questionable decisions made, and that's still true, but the deeper I look into it, things start to make more sense. First is that you can only play these sports in co-op mode, and every time you play this mode, you play them in the exact same order. I'm not a fan of that. Now why are these sports only locked behind behind this mode, because they are in a team setting, while every other sport we've talked about are designed specifically for a free-for-all amongst 4 individual players. Not a single sport in either of these games in battle mode will put you in a 2v2, 3v1, or 4v4 setting, and that is a damn shame on its own, because I fucking love the speed skating relay, and it shouldn't be that difficult to be able to choose if you want to play either individual or team variations of ski jump and bobsleigh / Luke? Oh my god, I was doing so good. What the hell happened? And it shouldn't be difficult to be able to choose if you want to play either individual or team variations of some of these sports, like ski jump or bobsleigh. And to think, this is after Mario and Sonic 2010, where a bunch of Olympic and Dream events have solo and team options. A major missed opportunity even for a game like this. So technically there are 30 sports in this game, but realistically there are 27, so false advertising is the real name of the game. Also, not being able to choose your own team is a sin. There are 4 difficulties to choose from, 4 teams to play against, and hopefully by the time I complete this project, I can defeat the professionals, but I have my doubts. I like the idea of this mode, and it's not even executed terribly, but it does feel more empty than it should. These sports should be in battle mode in a unique area. Call it the team area for the sake of having a name. Also, I do like to believe that a few of these events could have team variants, but what's the point of theorizing 16 years later? Winter fun in certain areas feels like an evolution of outdoor fun, despite the setting being the complete opposite. More character customization, a new mode that could have appeared in outdoor fun, and having a bear be a playable character. But it still plays the exact same in terms of the overall concept of these games. There was only one change, which is nice, but everything else stayed the exact same. One insanely limited game mode can only take your game so far, especially if nothing else changed outside of the sports you're playing. Although this game might be on the same level as Tekken and Far Cry 5. I know you don't actually play as Cheeseburger, like controlling him, but it's too funny not to mention. He's the best. The family party games in terms of quality are not all that good. The control is more inconsistent than it is tolerable. It works in certain sports just fine, while others make me want to chop my arms off. Not to mention the amount of times I've had to shake the Wii remote like my life depended on it. I swear, if I don't have the strongest right arm in history when I'm done with this project, I am going to riot. Now, in terms of nostalgia, this is Deca Sports, as I definitely played these games a lot when I was young, but I liked Deca Sports so much more as games. Also, I find those games way more memorable and fun to play. Both of these games in a sense are Wii Sports clones. One actually succeeds at being a Wii Sports clone, which isn't saying all that much, while the other tried to combine Wii Sports with Mario and Sonic, then proceeded to fail quietly. Basically, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around to hear it, doesn't make a sound. There were people who were there to experience the failure, and as you can tell, I am one of those people, and to me, it's screaming in agonizing pain. Not to mention the most recent and probably worst installment of this franchise on the Wii U in 2012. This game is the Wii U's Deca Sports Freedom. Probably worse if that's even possible. Will I ever find out? Yeah, no, that's just not happening.